Welcome to Be a Blaze. We're lighting a fire in you to move you from ordinary to extraordinary, living out your blaze for life. I am your host, Polly Hamp. Let's be a blaze. Hello and welcome to Be a Blaze podcast. I am your host, Polly Hamp, and I am so glad you're here today. Before we get started on this topic called the matter of life and death, I would like to give a bit of a warning that this is a topic that we will be talking about suicide and all the ins and outs of that. And just please be aware of your audience. And if you have little ears around, you might want to stick earbuds in your ears or listen at another time unless they are ready for this conversation, which I actually think having a conversation about suicide with our younger folks is really important. We'll go ahead and dive in today about communicating and talking about a matter of life and death. Right now, the statistic is suicide is one of the leading causes of death in the United States. So when you look at all the deaths, heart failure, cancers, all of that, suicide is ranking incredibly high. It's ranking incredibly high also. The population that is the highest with the suicide is actually the older population. However, it is an epidemic among our young people as well. There are young 10-year-olds and 8-year-olds and 12-year-olds that are taking their lives because of multiple situations, abuse, bullying, just not wanting to live. So as we look at this epidemic, it is scary. And it is sad and it is hard. And today I want to talk to a few groups of people. First, I want to talk to the people who think and have suicidal ideation and think about death and don't want to be alive. And there's a range of that. Sometimes it's just thoughts of death and you're like, I don't think I would ever take my life. However, I don't want to be alive. And then there are those who are to the edge of, I have a plan. I have a plan. I know when I'm going to do it. I'm ready to do it. And I just cannot be here anymore. So I want to talk to that group of people. I also want to talk to the group of people who have lost loved ones to suicide. And for those that navigate the deep grief and maybe even guilt and the heartache of losing a loved one to suicide, because for many people who lose, it's hard to understand. And then I want to talk to the people who judge, the people who judge people who struggle with suicidal ideation, or even those who just can't even understand why somebody would want to do that, and in the judgments that are created toward the people who have these feelings, have these emotions, but then also maybe even those that have taken their lives that they just don't fully understand. Whatever category you fall in, and you may be in a few of those categories. However, just a few categories of people that I want to address. But there's a reason why I want to talk about this. It's not a light topic. It's not a popular topic. Most of us want to just tuck it away and not think about it. And however, more than likely with somebody, if it's not, you know somebody that is struggling with thoughts of suicide. You know somebody that's struggling that may have a smile on their face and they suck it up every single day, but on the inside they are crippled with sadness, crippled with depression, crippled with frustration, and crippled with this idea and this desire to no longer be on the earth. More than likely, people who are struggling with that, and it is a silent epidemic. The people who cry out, I don't want to live anymore, all that stuff, are usually not the people who end up taking their lives. Usually the people who end up taking their lives are the quiet ones, the ones that will never let you know that these are the thoughts that track through their mind, that these are the thoughts that they no longer want to live on earth. Because if they told somebody that, the way we normally respond to that is, what do you mean? Life is good. You need to be here. It's okay. You're going to get better. Everything's going to be fine. And it's such a normal human reaction to not know how to respond to somebody who is in so much pain, be it mentally, physically, emotionally, relationally, spiritually, that they do not want to share it because of the pushback. And so it's a silent epidemic of emotional pain that more than likely you don't know that somebody is struggling. But I will almost 100% guarantee that you do know somebody who struggles with these silent thoughts. So the reason why I want to talk about this is very much part of my story. In episode 1, I give an example of my story, not example. I give my story and talk about just the sexual abuse that I grew up with, and then the choices that I made from that abuse and the pain that occurred over the time and just judgments of myself. And then me ending up being in the sex industry, working in the strip clubs while I was in college for a couple of years. That was pretty much the pinnacle of my pain. And even though I've had lots of healing, all that kind of stuff, after living that life in the industry, the pain was so compounded from not just the things that had happened to me, but the choices that I also made in that process because of the pain that I lived. And there was a moment in time where I sat in a parking lot with an object to take my life because I was done with life. The pain was so great. The depression was so heavy, and I did not see a way out. The only way out that I saw was to no longer live. However, there was this moment, this shift, this change that happened where I did not end up taking my life. And clearly, because here I am able to talk about it, but I will tell you that the thoughts of not being alive plagued me for decades. Even when I was working on my healing journey and just navigating life and being a mom and being a wife and doing all these things, it was always this nagging thought in my psyche of, you don't have to be here on earth. You don't have to live anymore. And it was such a painful way to live. It was such a painful thought process because every time I had it was like a visceral emotion. And it was like, I could exit this world. And so many times it would track through my mind. And sometimes it was stronger than others, especially when I was in specific emotional states of pain, frustration. My nervous system would be on fire. And I felt like I was living in survival mode with high levels of cortisol, high levels of adrenaline, and thinking, I can't get out of this. I want to talk to the people right now, first and foremost. If you have suicidal ideation, if you have chronic thoughts of death and not wanting to be here, and if it's something that plagues you, whether it be a constant thought that just tracks through your mind or it just pops into your mind a few times here and there, I just first want to relieve you that so many times when we have these thoughts, we carry shame with them. You carry shame, you carry embarrassment, you carry frustration, but you also carry the thought of maybe this would finally create relief. And it gets so great that even the people in your life that you've been trying to live for and carry an emotional weight that may not be yours to carry, but you're carrying your own pain. And then the worry of, if I leave this person, these people, are they going to be okay? Or I'm never going to be okay? Or me being on earth actually harms other people. These thought processes that track through your mind, which brings a chemical release that keeps that loop happening. And so usually those thoughts are based off of trauma. It can also be because of specific medications. If you've just got on a new antidepressant or a new medication, there are labels on there to say, please contact your doctor immediately if you have thoughts of suicide. And so many of these medications, when people first start them, do so much adjustment to whatever it is, but chemically shifting things that it brings the next steps to taking one's life. And so there are so many factors and so many elements to really pay attention to. But I would just want to say to those who who might be plagued with suicidal ideation or even just having a plan, or it pops into your head every once in a while. I want you to know that you're not crazy, that something along the way in your life got distorted, not because you're bad and not because you're broken, but because the world is broken. Because there is a system out there that occurs, whether we are privy to it, whether we choose to live in it, whether we might have been somebody who's done harm or experienced harm or have had incredible loss, so much so that we look at the possibility of no longer being alive. And when we do that, it creates this narrative in our mind that can keep us stuck in a panic loop of wanting to no longer be here. And so the process to shift that it can seem very tedious, can seem very painful. And it's like, how can I never not think about this again? How can I, especially when it has the shame connected to it and the guilt and it's like, what's wrong with me and all of that kind of stuff. And why can I not get my emotions in check? And why do I keep having these thoughts? And so I just want to encourage you. First, really connect to yourself in a way that pulls you out of the survival part of your brain, because we are not designed to live from just survival. And you might be going, yeah, I've tried that. I've done all of these different things and all that kind of stuff. But if you are trying and striving, that's still the bottom part of your brain. And it's this access to this place in your process that you can pause, take a deep breath, connect to yourself, and notice what happens. And you may have all of these things in your life that just suck, are just hard. Maybe you have incredible debt. Maybe you're in a really painful relationship. Maybe you're the one causing the pain in the relationship. Maybe you have trauma, sexual abuse. Maybe you've been in combat and you've seen and experienced things that no human being is designed to see or experience. And you have all of this stuff going on. And I just want to encourage you. I didn't know that we could actually fully heal. I didn't know. I wanted to believe it. Like, I get to work with people all day long on helping them heal their nervous system and would watch people heal and find freedom. But for myself, I'm like, do I ever actually get to have this? And do I ever actually get to experience this? Because I have this scar in my arm. I had a snowmobile accident back in 2000, which shattered the 2 bones in my arm. And I have 2 scars from there. And those scars will always be there on my skin. But my bones are healed. And in that, like, maybe I still have scars and a picture of what happened and a reminder. However, the bones are fully healed. So just like that, you can be fully healed. When you start believing that and partner with that truth, and you get to experience that for yourself in little increments. But I just want to encourage you, please risk it. Please. If you're like, I've done all this counseling, I've done all this stuff, and I am at the edge of myself, that is actually a really beautiful place to be. Being at the edge of yourself and at the end of yourself is right where breakthrough happens. And it may not feel like it. It may feel like you are on the edge of the cliff. And if you, like, one little breath, one little wind pushes you off the edge of that cliff, actually, it's a really beautiful, powerful place to be, because when you come to the edge and the end of yourself, the only place to go is to start becoming consciously aware of self and moving up and living in a present state. And even though the present state might not look good, if you've got debt and painful relationships and a really crappy job, or you've been trying to find a job and you're like, Polly, you don't understand. My life is hopeless. My life, like, I've got nothing to look forward to. My kids don't talk to me. My family, I don't have any family, or I've seen things that nobody else could see, and I've got these PTSD, these flashbacks, and all this kind of stuff. And you are designed to heal, even when your nervous system is on fire, even when the thoughts of not being alive anymore are screaming at you, saying, this would be the easiest way. I can promise you, if you will just be curious, if you will just take some time to connect with yourself in a new way that will bring relief to your nervous system, relief to your thoughts. And in that moment, and in that relief, these little bitty ripple effects of hope start speaking to your nervous system. And you can experience something completely different where over time, again, over time, you will begin to heal and experience life and life abundantly. There is no guilt and no shame for the things that brought you to the edge of yourself that make you think ending your life is the only answer. If you keep piling on shame and guilt for having those thoughts, then it will keep trying to convince you that's the answer. And when you start asking a different question, not the why this, why does this always happen? Why can't I get my crap together? Why is there something wrong with me? You start asking, how did I come to know this? How do I experience myself? How can I start to see and experience myself in a different way where I'm connected and no longer stay stuck in the trap, in the loop of my old thought processes, but where I get to discover myself in new ways? So please experiment in it. Please look at another way to experience life. And as you do that, your mind, your emotions, your nervous system start trusting itself. And that grows and that grows. So, if you are considering not being here anymore, please take some time to consider, instead of with shame and with guilt, to connect to yourself in a whole new way and start having a new lens, not because other people need you to. Don't do this for other people. Do this for you. Because when you do it for you, it's solid. Other people come and go. And when you start doing it for you, it is a solid foundation of you going, I am worth this. I am worth still being here. And I may have a lot of crap going on right now, but I am worth being here and I'm going to fight for it. And little by little, you get to heal and find freedom. Also, if you are considering and just need people to talk to, I'm going to put all of these in our show notes, but there's the suicide hotline, which is, if you just dial 988, it will take you to people who can help you and just talk with you. They're not going to judge you. They're not going to be what's wrong with you, anything like that. They are there to help. And also there's a crisis text hotline. And this is for any crises, whether it's suicide, if you're in a hard relationship, an abusive relationship. This is just an all-encompassing crisis hotline. And you text the number 741-741. You put that number in and then you text HOME, HOME. And this is a phone number. Again, it's the crises hotline. And so any crises that you might be navigating, whether it is suicide or any other things that you're just like, I'm at the end of myself and I need some help. This is a great hotline with licensed counselors. They are both 24-hour hotlines to be able to get you some help. Now, the second group of people that I want to talk to are the ones that have lost people to suicide. I have lost a few very close people in my life to suicide, and it is devastating. It is painful and sad, and I would say confusing. But for me, it's not confusing because there are reasons for somebody that to get to the end of themselves and take their, but it may be incredibly confusing for you that you've experienced the loss of a loved one or just somebody that you even just knew to suicide, or you hear stories about a 10-year-old taking their lives because they were bullied, or a spouse. I will tell you that when you lose somebody, contingent on the closeness to the relationship, it will be a complete shock to your body and your nervous system. And there are story after story after story of people that completely shut down because of the loss. Or it's so hard. If suicide, if you do not understand or have experienced suicidal ideation or thinking about not being alive, and you've never understood that and you've never comprehended that, and then you lose somebody to suicide, it is a shock to the system. It is incredibly painful. It's incredibly confusing, and you just can't wrap your mind around it. And you look in contingent again on how close that person's relationship is to you, or how close you were to that person, whether it's a spouse, a sibling, a parent, or a best friend, or a coworker, or just the levels out of relationships of an acquaintance. It's this place of contingent on how close you were to that person. You start blaming yourself. Is there something I could have done? What did I miss? I don't think I've ever heard them talk about it. Or I heard them talk about it a couple of times, but I just never took them seriously. That doesn't even cross my mind. Or it does cross my mind and I can see how they would do it, but I don't know how they actually went to the edge to actually do it. And I will tell you, us humans, like our brainstem is so strong. We are designed to fight to stay alive. You look at somebody who's drowning, and I was a lifeguard back when I was in high school. And when you watch somebody drown, the fight to stay alive is such a human response. People don't just give up when they're fighting. It's a brainstem response. So for somebody to get so near the part of where they actually take their lives, it is this push against the human nature to no longer be alive. And so I want to relieve you. If you are somebody who has lost someone near and dear to suicide, if you've experienced that it wouldn't matter what you did, how much attention you gave them, even if you knew what was going on, you could not have done anything to change it. When somebody makes up their mind that they are no longer going to be here, it doesn't matter what you do. So if you have shame, if you have guilt, and if you're playing this track over and over in your head of, could I have done this differently? Maybe if we didn't have so many arguments, or if I was just a better husband or a wife, or if I was a better best friend, or if I had paid more attention to my daughter or my son, or I know my brother was dealing with addictions, and if I would have just finally helped get him into the treatment center, and you're looking for all of these ways to complete the answer of something that you are not designed to answer. You can't answer that question because that was their journey and their experience. And even though it ends in an incredibly tragic, painful way, there is not one thing you could have done to make it a different outcome. So even if you tried to put them in an institution, even if you tried to put them in an inpatient or outpatient program, if they have made up their minds and that is what they're going to do, that might prolong it a little bit. However, they're still going to do it. And so for you as somebody who has experienced loss, I want, this may be hard to hear, but I'm going to say it. I want to give you permission to surrender carrying the responsibility of their choice. Let me say that again. I want to give you permission to surrender the responsibility of their choice. And I want to give you permission to surrender the shame and the guilt of maybe you could have done something different to make their lives for them to not take their lives. This is a process for you. This is a process of connecting, again, it's the same thing, connecting to yourself in a way that it's like, as hard as it is, as hard as I want to believe that I could have made a difference in their choice, as hard as it is for me to believe that if I would have done things different, that they wouldn't have chosen that, I am going to choose to no longer blame myself. And I'm going to choose to actually surrender that responsibility. And I'm going to choose, I'm going to say it, I'm going to choose to forgive the person that I loved for them taking their lives and no longer being here. I am also going to choose to forgive myself for holding on and believing that I could have done something different to make a difference to where they wouldn't have chosen that path. When I talk about forgiveness, I am talking about a beautiful process of surrender where you're no longer carrying the weight of somebody else's pain and your own pain. And forgiveness is this beautiful gift of surrender and release to where even if it seems counterintuitive to forgive, it is a beautiful process of, again, surrendering so you're not carrying the weight of somebody else's pain. This is a process, and I will tell you, it is hard, and it is sad to lose somebody to suicide. It's sad to lose somebody to a natural death. It's sad to lose somebody to a disease. It's sad to lose somebody to an accident. They're all sad, but when you lose somebody to suicide, there's questions, there's different kinds of thought processes that are connected to it. Is there something that I could have done different? And no, there's not. There's nothing you could have done different to change somebody's mind from them making the choice that they made. So please take time to heal your heart, forgive yourself, not forcing it, but as a gift for yourself to release the pain that they carried, but that you also carry. That doesn't mean grief isn't going to happen. That doesn't mean you're not going to be angry. That doesn't mean you're not going to be disappointed. Like, you're going to have all of those emotions. However, you don't have to live in that emotional state. You can choose to find freedom. And I want to say one more thing about that. You do not have to stay stuck in the sorrow and the pain of their loss. You do not have to feel guilty for moving on and being happy. I know that might sound crazy to some of you guys, but there can be this guilt. It's almost like a survivor's guilt of people who are in war and in battle, and most of the battalion, I hope I'm saying that correctly, but most of their group got killed and they survived. And there's this thing called survivor's guilt. Or you're in a car accident and you're the only survivor in it. And you wonder, why am I still alive? Why did I not die? And so there's this thing called survivor's guilt. And so the same thing with when you lose a loved one to suicide, you can have a survivor's guilt of, I can't move on and be happy, because if I am, then that means I'm okay with the choice that they made. And for those who do not understand it, it can sound very bizarre. However, it is how sometimes we can we can use those kinds of thought processes to help make some kind of semblance, some kind of sense of what has taken place. I want to also give you permission to, as you navigate and work on your healing, that you have permission to find happiness and joy again. You are not harming them. And so please, with everything that you have, work on healing the grief and work on healing the disappointment and the anger and connect to this place of hope and joy to where you can experience life and life abundantly again. And you will almost always miss them. You will almost always be sad that they are gone. And you can live in the balance of both ands. And you can still have joy and live from a place of joy and find that hope again. And so just like I still have scars on my arms that remind me of the accident that I had, I don't think about them all the time. I have them there, but I have found joy from the brokenness. And so in that process, I hope you take time to find the peace and the joy and the healing and live from that place, because you are created for life and you have permission to live it out. Now, I want to move to another group of people. And this group of people are those who do not understand the weightiness of suicide, the weightiness of how people get there. And this group of people have incredibly severe, pointed judgments towards those who have thoughts of suicide ideation, all of that. To those that judge and those who do not understand, I want you to become a critical thinker. I want you to step outside of the judgment, because judgment creates blindness, and blindness creates disconnection. Judgments create disconnection from the people that you love. And like I said earlier in the podcast, I can guarantee you 100%, I'm 100% sure that there is somebody in your life that is struggling trying to be alive. And you don't recognize it because they smile, they know how to perform, and they do not feel safe talking to you because they know you will judge them. And the judgments get created not because you're a bad person, but judgments get created because of fear. We create judgments for the things that we fear. And what happens is fear then throws us into our brainstem that keeps us stuck in a survival loop. And from that place, we can no longer think critically. We can no longer think creatively. And we shut down to a very narrow focus in how we see things. And so for those that judge and do not understand people who have suicide ideation, just because you understand it does not mean that you're giving the person permission to take their lives. The kindest thing you can do, even when you don't understand the ins and outs and the intricacies of suicide and suicidal ideation, the kindest thing you can do for somebody is to have empathy. Somebody tells you in maybe a sideways comment is, I just don't want to be here anymore. Life is too hard. They are testing the waters. And if you judge them, and if you're like, what are you talking about? Life's not that bad. It can never get that bad. Or if you take your life, you're going to go to hell, which is a lie. By the way, one God, your DNA has changed. You cannot change your DNA back. And so if you ever have a question about somebody who has committed suicide and taken their lives, and whether they're going to hell or to heaven, which is actually the wrong question, but they don't lose their connection to God. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. All I'm saying is that if you have judgments, and if somebody like tests the water with, yeah, man, life's really hard. I don't really want to be here anymore. And you're like, oh, come on. What are you talking about? Like, life's good. Life's never that hard. You're going to be fine. Just pray more, or whatever flippant answer you might give. That may be the one chance. And I'm not trying to make you feel guilty or put guilt or shame on you, but that could be the one chance they verbalize and they put it out there to see if it's safe. And if you've ever had a conversation with somebody who has said something like that, and then you turn around and say the judgment back, or God's going to be angry at you, or whatever, life is fine, it's not that bad, it can never be that bad. If you've ever said that, and you have the opportunity to go back to that person and say, hey, I remember when you brought this up, and I responded in a really flippant, defensive, judgmental way, and I want to apologize. That statement scared me, and I didn't know how to respond in a way that connected to your heart. And I just want you to know that I see you and I heard you. And again, my response was flippant or judgmental or shame-laden. But hey, is there anything or any place that I can help direct you to find some peace in your heart? And just let them know that you hear. Let them know that you see. Let them know that you are safe. And so having that conversation, even though you might be scared to have that conversation, so I don't know how to do that, it's still going back, because the power of the recognition and the empathy and the connection, without judgment, without shame, without putting any guilt or fear or condemnation on them, opens up this gift of, oh, did you see me? And it might just be the words that help them shift, even though you're not responsible for them and the choices they make. It may be the words that help them shift to want to still be here for a little bit longer. Then maybe they'll go get some help. And you don't have to rescue them. It's not your job to save them. It is your job to have empathy instead of judgment. It is a true place of connection that will speak to them, and they can choose to receive it or not. And so taking the time, so if you have judgments, and if you've said judgy things and shameful things, and threw God out there of, oh, God's mad at you, or disappointed that you would even think that, or if you do that, you're not going to go to heaven, or whatever the things are, you can always go back and say, I did not listen, and I was scared, and I did not know how to respond. And I would like to respond in a different way. And you can take time to do that. Now, this is one of my longer podcasts. Usually I go for about 30 minutes, less than, but this topic is incredibly important to me because I have been on all sides of the topic. I have been the one that has lived with the pain of suicidal ideation. I have been in a place where I have tried to take my life and didn't want to live anymore. I've been in the place of losing dear ones and people that are close to me to suicide. I want to say to all of the people who are listening, please, whatever place you are in life, whether you can't even comprehend the thoughts of taking your life, you have this power and this gift to be able to speak life and connect and love to those who are silently struggling. And to those that are thinking about taking their lives, please, please know that you have the ability to change and begin to connect to yourself. And it doesn't have to be all at once. But I will tell you that the healing work that I have done and the work that I have done, I don't even think about death anymore. And I didn't know that was a thing. I thought it was just going to always be a scar and always be a part of my thought process. And it's not. So there is freedom to the other side. There is freedom from those thoughts. And that place of coming to the end of yourself is actually a beautiful place, because from that place you get to make a new decision. And I want to speak to those that have lost people near and dear to them. I'm so sorry. It's so hard. And you can surrender the responsibility of carrying the weight of their choice. And that might be hard to surrender because you might feel responsible. You might feel guilt for no longer holding on to that. However, you are also designed and created to live fully alive with hope and love and power. So thank you for listening through this whole message. Please share this, subscribe, and not because I want followers, but because this message can speak to those who are silently struggling. And I pray that over time can give them a new lens of hope. And again, you may not even know some of the people that are struggling because it is a silent epidemic. And usually the people who are threatening to kill themselves won't ever do it. But it's the ones that never say a dang thing. And it's the ones that are always smiling and the ones that are always helping other people. But so many times it is silently happening in the background and you don't know. And so please share this episode. I know it's a heavy episode, but it is an important one for all of us to recognize that we can look at this in a whole new way and change the statistics. We can help change the statistics where we create empathy and space and safety for those who are silently struggling. So share, comment. I'd love to hear your comments. Thank you for joining me today. And again, I will put all of the hotlines and any other information in the show notes for you guys so you can share those, or just please have them in your phone because you never know. That way you have immediate access to them, not out of fear, but out of preparation for somebody else or maybe even yourself. I love you guys, and I hope you have a beautiful, blazy day, and I will see you next week. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to Be a Blaze podcast. If today's episode sparked something in you, don't keep the fire to yourself. Follow, like, download, and share it with a friend who needs the fire. Let's keep blazing trails together. This is Polly Hamp, and I will see you next time.